Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Fantasy Birds. Today, we are back with 3 must-add players in fantasy basketball. The season is officially underway. We've gone through 1 week of basketball, heading into week 2 of fantasy. Let's talk about 3 guys that we love adding off of the waiver wire and free agency in our leagues. I'm only picking guys that are available in over 40% of fantasy leagues, so there is a decent chance that these guys are available in your leagues. But we got NBA basketball back, so let's not waste your time. Let's hop right into our 3 must-add players. Filming this on October 24th, Monday, right before the games start. So some things are subject to change. But let's hop right into our first guy on our must-add players in fantasy basketball. First guy on our list is going to be Nic Claxton, the center for the Brooklyn Nets. Claxton's been up and down in fantasy throughout his young career in the NBA. That's due to just his minutes fluctuating from Steve Nash in Brooklyn. In the past, they've had a lot of players ahead of him on the depth chart. Last season, Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond, all getting minutes for this Brooklyn frontcourt. But now those guys are gone in for the Nets, and Nic Claxton looks to be that starting center, the best big man on this team outside of obviously Kevin Durant and maybe even Ben Simmons at power forward. But another thing holding Claxton back in the past has been his weight. He looks a lot bigger, a lot stronger this year, which has helped him get even more minutes. He's around 28 minutes a game currently through 2 games of the regular season. But he's done some pretty great things with those minutes, averaging 16 points at over 10.5 rebounds per game through 2 games so far. Yes, a small sample size, but something we want to be paying attention to. In category leagues, you have to factor in the fact that there's no 3-pointers, the free throw percentage is going to be awful, and the assists are pretty much non-existent from Claxton. But he looks a lot better all around. I mean, he's able to get his shots off the dribble, driving to the rack that we saw in the first game of the year. So it looks like he's developing as he's aging. But with Claxton, we can count on some really good points and rebounds numbers, seriously good block numbers, averaging 3 blocks per game for the first 2 games, and also getting a steal sprinkled in as well. So Claxton doing really good on the defensive side of numbers in category leagues. High field goal percentage, high points and rebounds, and those blocks, if he can continue getting upwards of 2 blocks a game, currently averaging 3 like we said, but upwards of 2, he should provide some decent value on teams punting free throw percentage. But in points leagues, I'm all in on Nic Claxton, given the fact that those aren't going to hurt us. No 3-pointers here, just points and rebounds, picking up those counting statistics that we love getting, especially when you're getting him cheap off the waiver wire. Definitely a guy I want to be adding, given the fact that he's still developing in his NBA career. So Claxton, definitely a guy I want to be snagging off the waiver wire if possible. Obviously not going to be a go-to scorer in this Nets offense that features Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, but still definitely cleaning up a lot of rebounds and doing a lot of the dirty work for this team that leads to those counting stats like we talked about and like we love seeing for Claxton. The next guy I want to be adding is Kevin Huerter, the shooting guard for the Sacramento Kings, coming over from the Atlanta Hawks after DeJounte Murray gets that deal with the Hawks to come to Atlanta. Definitely benefiting from Tyrese Halliburton's volume taken away from Sacramento. De'Aaron Fox, we know what he is. He's a very fast, elusive point guard, likes to push the pace of play, but still there's a lot of usage available in this offense that Halliburton left from a season ago now in Indiana. Huerter's getting around 30 minutes per game through the first 3 games, so pretty solid minutes there for Huerter. And he's taking advantage of nearly 17 points a game, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. Definitely more of a points league guy. He's not really helping you out too much in the rebounds and assist category. Also, his field goal percentage has been pretty abysmal lately, but he does give you a pretty significant boost at 3-pointers. The first 2 games of the season, putting in 5 and 6 threes respectively. Did fall off in his 3rd game, but we know Huerter has that ability to shoot and get hot at any moment. So definitely a good 3-point streamer in category leagues. But I love if Huerter's able to hold down this 30 minutes a game type role in Sacramento, which he should. I don't see Davion Mitchell providing too much of a scare for Huerter's minutes. I mean, we saw Davion Mitchell, solid player in college at Baylor, not necessarily the greatest NBA player, but last season was able to put up some pretty good fantasy outings at the end of the year when Halliburton was dealt to Indiana. So we had that history for this Kings off-ball point guard, shooting guard next to De'Aaron Fox being very relevant in fantasy the past 2 seasons. And Huerter, if able to step into that role, could provide the exact same output in fantasy, especially in scoring and points leagues where you're not knocked for his efficiency numbers. But Huerter is available in over 70% of sleeper leagues, which is definitely way too low for Huerter, a guy getting 30 minutes in an offense that looks to push the pace of play. So if he's available and you have an open roster spot, would not mind taking a shot at Kevin Huerter. We've seen him be a very solid scorer in the NBA for a couple of years now, and getting that role in Sacramento, definitely would not mind taking a stab at him. The next guy I want to look into adding is Cole Anthony, the point guard for the Orlando Magic. Pretty rough in category leagues with the field goal percentage being up and down all the time, but so far this season he's been pretty solid, shooting 8 for 12 and 6 for 13 in his first 2 games of the season. So not completely hurting you in the field goal percentage, putting up some pretty solid scoring at nearly 20 points a game, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. Anthony's been doing it in a lot of categories so far, but we know this has to do with a lot with Markelle Fultz and Jalen Suggs both missing time this early season. As long as these 2 guys are injured, Cole Anthony should have a big role in this offense, but once they start getting worked back into the offense healthy and getting their normal minutes, it's going to be hard for Anthony to crack into fantasy lineups. But until then, I want to be rolling all the Cole Anthony that I have out there, knowing he can have a game like he did in the first game of his season, going 4 for 5 from three-point land and providing some very good scoring numbers. In category leagues, I'm really only looking at him as a 3-point and scoring option, as he's accumulated 6 three-pointers over the first 2 games of the season. So definitely a good 3-point streamer. So if in need of some cheap points and assists, definitely Cole Anthony's a guy I wouldn't mind looking into. Some other guys I wanted to put on this list were Lauri Markkanen for the Jazz, but he was rostered in too many leagues. I think he was only available in 40% of the leagues when I checked the statistics. But Lauri Markkanen is looking extremely good this year in Utah. Probably the second best scorer on their team next to Jordan Clarkson, who's now in the starting lineup. Also, wouldn't mind looking into guys like Kelly Olynyk for that team, although there is some concern that Walker Kessler's going to get his minutes ramped up. Does that take away from Kelly Olynyk? Potentially. Does Olynyk slide to that power forward and play alongside Lauri Markkanen and maybe Walker Kessler going with a giant front court in Utah? That's yet to be seen. But Olynyk, if given the role in Utah, he should put up some pretty solid numbers. He's done some good scoring. Needs a little bit of help on the rebounding side, but definitely a guy I wouldn't mind adding as well if available in your leagues. Nick Richards for the Hornets is another guy I was looking at, but I didn't want to put him on the list because I know there's guys like Plumlee and Williams, the rookie out of Duke, that are going to factor into his minutes. But so far, getting around 22 minutes, nothing spectacular. Won't be able to keep the production up that he has right now going forward with that little minutes. But 20 points and 10 rebounds in 2 of the 3 games played this year in only 20 minutes each game. Pretty impressive numbers from Richards in Charlotte. We know there's going to be a lot of available minutes with Bridges, LaMelo all sending out good, decent rebounders at their respective positions. So maybe that's why Richards has been able to put up some pretty solid numbers. But as these other guys get mixed in back into the fold in Charlotte, I expect Richards to come back down to earth. But I wouldn't mind adding him, just keeping in mind that those guys coming back, Williams and LaMelo, value might be very short-lived this upcoming season. But that's going to wrap it up. Those are our 3 must-add players in fantasy basketball. After week 1, we went with Nic Claxton, the center for the Brooklyn Nets, Kevin Huerter, the shooting guard for the Sacramento Kings, and Cole Anthony, the point guard for the Orlando Magic. While those guys are all out with injury in Orlando in the backcourt, we want to be taking advantage of Cole Anthony while we can. Doesn't look like it's going to be some long-lived fantasy production, but I'll grab it while it's hot. So, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next week with another episode of the Fantasy Birds. Let me know in the comments whether you agree or disagree with any of these takes. I love hearing your feedback, even if you're disagreeing. I know I'm always wrong, so feel free to let me know how wrong I am in the comment section below. But thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next week.